Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. My name is John Venus, your host, and today we have an interesting topic to discuss. And just real quick, for you guys who don't know how to submit your requests for me to talk about, it's really easy. You have to send an email to john@johnvenus.com, or if you're on Instagram, you can send me a direct message over there or comment on one of my posts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll pick the most popular and the most requested topics and go over them in the future. So now you guys know. And last week one of the more popular topic requests was about relationships. So very hard, kind of field to talk about. Very hard to, pinpoint these issues because they are so personal and individual to each person's scenarios. So that is why it's so hard to give people relationship advice because you don't have enough context. So I'm going to be talking very generally here. I'm going to be talking about what I've learned through being in a relationship for 8 years. It's almost a decade. It's crazy. This is all just talking points and conversation starters. It's not me telling you guys everything. I'm not a relationship expert. So this is just something to think about because, as I always say, these topics and these ideas don't really come up in everyday life too much. You don't get these deep conversations when you're doing small talk at work or at school. So it's really cool to just sit down and discuss this with you guys. So thank you for tuning in and listening in. So this is going to be an exciting one. So firstly, there are a lot of people who come up to me in events in particular, because a lot of times they don't want to leave public comments. So in events, for some reason, this comes up a lot. A lot of people come up to me and ask for relationship advice and whether or not, someone who is vegan can date or marry and live happily ever after with someone who is not. And today's video is not going to be focused only on, vegan, dating non-vegan. It's basically, one point of view versus another point of view, and can they be compatible? Because, it's the same for every single situation, whether, it's a religion or a way of living. It's all about values in the end. Depending on what values people have, that's going to determine whether or not, it's going to work. And it's not always black and white. People can change and, get new values and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to cover here, but I'm going to try to go over it quickly, but still in depth and hopefully not bore you guys. But if you date someone, if you meet someone and you are a vegan and you meet someone who is not vegan, it's always going to be at the back of your mind, right? Because, at least if you're a vegan for, ethical reasons and you're really passionate about the lifestyle, then it's going to be at the back of your mind. Is this person going to be able to change in the future? Is he open to going vegan? What's his stance on this thing? So there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of communication going on to find out where that person stands, right? And that is why a lot of relationships only last a couple of months or even a couple of weeks, right? Or, you never go past the dating stage because, through the initial stages, it's kind of like finding out whether or not that person is compatible with yourself. And on the other hand, there's a lot of people who stay in a relationship for years and years and years, and they're still in that, initial dating phase without any communication, and which is how a lot of people get in these, troublesome situations. Expectations is a big, if not the biggest issue that I see in relationships, short and long-term relationships, even marriages that have been, going on for decades. These things just, ruin people's lives. So I personally believe that you should not have any expectations of the other person in terms of expecting them to change their whole belief system and change their value system around to make it fit yours. It doesn't matter if you're married, like that's not, it doesn't mean that, all of a sudden that person is going to, change and, start accepting and, change their whole lifestyle around just to fit your agenda, right? And the same with the other way around, right? It's not about that, right? It's not about expecting someone to change. If you do that, in my opinion, in my honest opinion, if you're expecting your partner to change in the future and just, waiting for that time where he finally realizes, or he finally, sees life the way that I see it, it's not going to work out really well. One, because chances are that it's not going to happen. People do change, but not that often. And two, your relationship will never be fulfilling because it's always going to be at the back of your mind. It's like, you're going by your everyday life, but at the back of your mind, you're always thinking, every time that he's, if we're using the vegan versus non-vegan example, you're always going to be thinking about, I wish that he would choose a kale salad instead of that cheeseburger. Every time that he goes for food, you're going to have that in the back of your mind, and you're going to have this negative association with, this situation, right, with the relationship. And, I don't think that is a healthy way to go about it, because I think that, one true good relationship has to be one where you're fully embracing each other for who they are, no matter what. And that is a very, very difficult point to get to. Some people get to it very easily if they are like a perfect match and they keep evolving in the same way and direction as time goes on, instead of evolving in different separate ways. So it's challenging, but that's the only way that I can see, and I've seen in my personal life, very successful and healthy relationships. And the thing that I'm talking about with progressing in the same direction is so key. Like, there are so many people who have very busy lives, right? And they don't communicate that often, and they don't see each other for more than, maybe 2 hours a day, for example. And that means that it's hard to get the necessary communication going and the necessary openness to share these vulnerable thoughts and feelings and being honest with how you feel about each other. I believe that all this talking about these important, valuable stuff in terms of your value systems and what's important in your life has to be done as quickly as possible. Get it out of the way so you don't run into these things later on in the relationship, right? So, I don't know. I think, communication is 100% key. That's it's nothing new. Everyone knows that. It's hard to do, especially if you're coming from a place where it's you have a very reserved culture. People don't really open up too easily. It takes a lot of time for people to share their insecurities and that kind of stuff. So it is a lot of work, and it doesn't come natural to a lot of people, but it is so important. And if you are facing a dilemma that is that important, it has to be done, and you have to do your best to get it out of the way, to figure out if that person is compatible with you or not. So a lot of times you also hear about people growing in different directions, right? One person maybe stays stagnant in the way they think about things and do things, and then the other partner starts climbing up the ladder in terms of maybe doing more and more research, or working harder to get a promotion, or earn more money or something, or whatever the case is. A lot of times one partner will just be happy where they are and not need any change at all, while the other is all of a sudden has this ambition awakened in them, and they want to go hard and really change their lifestyle around, and go full on. And that is when a lot of issues come in as well, because the person who is used to the lifestyle you've always had, and like the same stagnant, same happy life or whatever, that person will have a really hard time keeping up with your progress and your growth and your new goals and ambitions. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes that person, if that person that is happy with their current situation is encouraging and accepts that the other partner is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, then it will work, right? There is no reason why not. But if that person needs to have that status quo of being in the same boat as having both of you on the same boat in the comfy lifestyle that you've always known, then it becomes a problem, right? Because then he will resent the other person for leaving that comfy space that you've been in so long. So That's another thing that catches a lot of people off guard and causes a lot of problems. So if that happens, there is again communication to be made, and a lot of times, if you change as a person and the other person doesn't, and one of you doesn't like it, then it's going to be really hard to maintain that relationship. And some people stick it out for years, decades, and that's why you all of a sudden see people like divorcing at 50 and saying they've wanted to do this for a long time. They have midlife crises, and it's because they've always had this unease about the whole situation. They've stuck to something that they didn't really feel 100% aligned with for a long time, and then the frustration and anger builds up, and then everything just falls apart at the end. So there isn't just one or two reasons for these things to happen. There can be a million, but those are the most common ones that I often see. So let's use another example. If one partner is working a 9-to-5 job and the other partner is also working a 9-to-5 job, but the let's use Bob as a name. If Bob had always dreamed of becoming the successful businessman, and he's working really hard at his 9-to-5 corporate job to get promotions and make money and live the life that he's always wanted to. And on the other hand, Carrie, let's call her Carrie. I don't know if that's a real name, Carrie. I never heard that. And Carrie is just, okay with everything. She's just working to provide for her life and for the relationship, and she values more her family and her lifestyle and going out for walks and hikes and that kind of stuff. So if Bob all of a sudden decides that he can't do this anymore, he can't just stay in a corporate job, and he decides to quit his corporate job to start his own business, to finally make it as an entrepreneur and make the big money. And he knows how much he'll have to sacrifice. He knows how much time it takes to start his own business, how much effort it takes, but he decides to do it anyways. While Carrie is initially supportive, she doesn't realize that will directly be in conflict with her highest values of having the amazing hikes with her boyfriend or husband. So at first she might be okay with it, but once she realizes that Bob has to be working around the clock 24/7, taking meetings, never being able to do the important things that she wanted them to do, like hikes and that kind of stuff. Maybe they still do, but not enough to make her fulfilled. That's going to be an issue, right? Because one person's highest value is to be together no matter what for as much time as possible and be outdoors and go for hikes, while the other person's highest value is to be a successful entrepreneur and make money to provide for the family and to make a name for himself and whatever else, right? So even if both people in their hearts want what's best for the family and the relationship, they have two very different ways of approaching and living that truth. So both people might seem like they're have the relationship as a top priority and that kind of stuff, but in reality, we're all individuals. We all have our needs and dreams and values. And we're not going to ever put anyone else, or, very rarely we're going to put anyone else, before our highest, deepest values, right? If they break up or if things doesn't work out, it means that it wasn't the case, right? The relationship wasn't more important than the goal of, trying to give your best shot to become a successful entrepreneur and working hard. Or for Carrie's example, her highest value wasn't to be together with Bob no matter what happened. It was to have a fulfilling life, going for outdoor hikes at the present moment and not caring too much about the future, right? So, everyone's highest values. I think I read a book about this. I'm not sure what it was called. I think it was called The Values Factor. It was a really good book. It was years ago that I read it, so I have to read it again, but definitely something to check out. I remember it was one of my favorite books, Values Factor, I believe. I forgot the author's name, but really good stuff. And it really goes in depth about how values dictate everyone's outcomes and behaviors, right? So it's really when it comes to relationships, you always have to look at the values. That is the most important thing. And can people change their values? Of course, 100%. And it's, if something drastic changes in a relationship, like, one person all of a sudden wants to go a different direction from the direction that they both have been going together. If one person does a drastic change, the other person has to either accept and just continue on a separate path and try to maintain a relationship together, or she has to change along with the other partner, or he has to change with his or her partner, or they have to end the whole thing, right? So you can definitely change, but I think the main point is that the underlying values have to be there, and they have to be matching your values from the start. And then no matter what change that may happen in the future, no matter which direction you guys grow in, it can or has a very high chance of working out if the foundation or the beginning of the relationship, you guys already know each other's highest values and what's most important in your lives. And again, those may change as time goes. And if you guys try to stay together and move in the same direction, the chances of getting going or understanding something in completely different ways, or moving in separate ways in the future, is going to be a lot less probable. So it's really important, I think, to try always to focus on moving the relationship moving the two people involved in a relationship in the same direction, always including each other in what you learn about the world, your thoughts. Always share these intimate things, and be open and talk about those difficult situations. If anything negative comes up, talk about those things, try to figure each other out and try to grow together. That is the best thing that I've found in my own relationship, is just, communication. And, I've been in a relationship for so long now that, I faced a lot of these problems. There were some, how do you say, like, climaxes where it was kind of like make or break it. It was like different situations where I got it. I'm not going to go into the actual situations and what caused them, because some things are better to have private. I don't want to share my whole life. But the point is that it's very normal for every single relationship to hit multiple of these points where either you have to make a really difficult choice, and really find out if it is really possible for you guys to be together and be optimally happy to your fullest while fulfilling your deepest values, right? And the situation might be very different from person to person, but it is going to happen a lot of times. I've never heard of a relationship that's been going on for a very long time without any issues or any things that people have to work through, right? And if that is the case, if someone has a 5-year relationship and they've never had a single argument or discussion, they have zero communication, unless they marry their identical twin that thinks the exact same way. So hopefully no one does that. I think that in general, vegans and people who have a belief or a lifestyle that is very different from the mainstream, for most people, definitely have a tougher time, because they have a lot of strong beliefs about something, and it's really hard to find other people that have the same underlying values and beliefs. And it doesn't mean that you have to find someone who is passionate about animal rights or anything like that, but you have to find someone who has a very deep value, or their deepest values is being loving, being caring, being empathetic, changing the world, the environment. There's a lot of different ways to go about it, but it has to be like something that can cross over with your values, and then you can work it out from there. But yeah, I mean, like, guys are very absent in the vegan community, right? There are 30 girls to one dude in the vegan community. So if you're a guy and you're on the fence of going vegan, trust me, it's a good move. Yeah, I know this. I checked my brother's Tinder account. Sorry, Leo. I'm just kidding, guys. So yeah, relationships in a nutshell, it's not an easy thing. There's so many things that go into it, but communication, being open, talking about these difficult issues is going to help so much. And always try to grow together rather than growing apart. Always update each other and inform each other of new information that you learned. Always be kind, be understanding, and never expect someone else to change to fit your own agenda or lifestyle or own values. It's not about that. We can't change anyone. If you're expecting someone to change for you, you're not in the right, and it's going to fail most likely. I'm almost 100% sure that it's not going to go well. It just doesn't work that way. So we're not here to change other people and feed our own egos and make ourselves feel good, and try to find someone who can do exactly what we want them to do and have a kind of like a conditional love relationship rather than an unconditional love relationship, right? It's all about having that unconditional love, that you love a person regardless of what they do, instead of a conditional relationship where you say or you think you love someone as long as blah blah blah, right? As long as they eat vegan, or as long as they make me a sandwich, or as long as they make my bed, as long as they make money for me and the family. The conditional stuff is always something to worry about. And we're all human. We're not perfect. We all have a huge ego, and we, always try to benefit ourselves in many ways. So we have to catch ourselves, do our best to, think outside the box and just be as neutral as possible, and try to, realize that we're all individuals and no one is going to live life to serve you, and you are not meant to serve anyone else. So I guess that's it for this episode. I probably dragged on for too long. I can make more episodes regarding relationships and subtopics about relationships. If you guys want to, all you got to do is leave me a suggestion and I'll get to it. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. If you're new around here, please consider subscribing and leave a rating on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes, I really appreciate that. It will mean the world. Thank you, and I'll see you very soon. Peace out.